What's up, Pod people, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're going to walk through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing okay. It's been an interesting week, and I am ready to be doing this particular episode podcast with you today.
Yay!
Yeah. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited because it's no secret, I don't think, to anybody that we're not the biggest fan of the first half of The Great Hunt.
Yeah, I think
but I
fair.
feel like this is the part of the book where things change and get more interesting. And I do really like the second half of The Great Hunt.
Yeah.
And I think this is the turning point. So I'm excited to be here finally.
Yay.
Before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned.
We also wanted to share an email that we got about a recent episode. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get emails with corrections and answers to our questions, and we want to start working them into the podcast when we can. So this email is from Christian Hayden, who has some info about Grom.
Yay.
We were wondering how the Grom got to the portal world to attack Rand and Company, and we wondered if Lanfair brought the Grom from Shandar.
Shandar. I think.
We'll go with that. Apparently, we had it completely backwards. Christian let us know that Jordan said the Grom, as well as many of the creatures the Shanshan have, are exotics that are native to parallel worlds and were brought from the mirror world to Randland via portal stones. So when Rand sees the Grom in the portal stone world, he's seeing them in their natural habitat. Thanks, Christian. This is super cool information to have, and we really appreciate you letting us know. Mm-hmm. If you have anything that you want to share with us, you can email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com. We ask your opinion on a lot of crackpot theories, so feel free to shed some light on anything we cover, and we might bring it up in a future episode.
Cool. All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today, we will begin discussing chapters 22 and 23 of The Great Hunt. Moiraine and Lan seek answers in unexpected places, and Nynaeve faces her first test in the tower. Chapter 22 is called Watchers, and the icon is the dagger.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Moiraine is visiting two retired Aes Sedai, Adelius and Vandene, tower historians with a great home library and a wealth of information. Frustrated at not finding the answers she seeks, Moiraine takes a break and unexpectedly asks Lan if he remembers when they first met. He does, and they reminisce about their rocky beginning. Read New Spring for more detail. After some good-natured ribbing, the conversation turns more serious when she asks him if his warder bond chafes after all these years. It's an insult, and Moiraine is purposefully trying to knock him off balance. He says no, and asks why she's taking them on this trip down memory lane. Moiraine tells him that before she left the tower, she made arrangements that in the event of her death, his bond will be passed to another Aes Sedai. When Moiraine dies, Lan will be compelled to seek her out. Lan is furious at being given as a pet and demands to know who his new owner will be. Moiraine tells him that she has never seen him as a pet, and that Myrelle of the Green will manage him well until she finds someone who will suit him. Lan is shocked at being treated in such a scandalous manner, not as a pet, but a parcel to be passed around. Moiraine tells him that she will not undo what she's done. She will not let Lan throw his life away in a useless attempt to avenge her death, or in his equally useless war against the Blight. She tells him that he has too much to offer, and she will not have it wasted. Now that Moiraine has Lan so off balance, she asks again if his bond chafes, and Lan is murderous with anger. He demands to know if this has all been a test, reminding her that he has never failed her since the day he was pledged to her. Not once has she ever needed to use his bond to force him into anything. She says that it was not a test, but she tells him that she had begun to doubt him in Faldara. She asks him why he went behind her back and set Rand up as a borderland soldier to face the Amyrlin. Lan tells her that it didn't seem right to send him to the wolves with no preparation, and that he needed someone on his side. Maybe he got caught in Rand's tavern pulling. Whatever it was, Lan reassures Moiraine that he still believes in her and their mission. He also tells her that he plans to keep Moiraine alive. She asks him for some space, but before he goes, she asks him if he has ever dreamed of more. He responds that all men dream, but he knows the difference between dreams and reality. He leaves, and Moiraine thinks of Nynaeve. Without even realizing it, that young woman had put cracks in the warder's walls. Already, he was sharing her loyalties to the Emmons Fielders. Moiraine is surprised to realize that she feels jealousy. She had never felt jealous of any other woman in regards to Lan until Nynaeve came along and captured his heart. Moiraine wondered how long it would be before Lan asked to be released from his bond and what she would do when he did. Vandine comes in to bring Moiraine tea. She wants to respect Moraine's privacy and is about to go, but Moiraine asks her if she can answer some questions. She asks Vandine about the prophecies of the dragon, specifically a link between him and the Horn of Valere, or him and Tommen Head. She also asks about Shadow Logoth and about Lanfear. Vandine answers her questions as well as she can, and talks about the signs she has seen that the last battle is a-comin'. She muses that maybe it's time that she and Adilius come out of retirement, but they hope to finish writing their history of the world first. She leaves Moiraine to her studies, and Moiraine goes out to the garden to puzzle things out. She hears a sound behind her and turns to find a drag car. She embraces Saidar, but it's too late. The creature is already crooning to her, and she is lost in its spell. It's about to give her its deadly kiss to suck out her soul. Boy, that sounds familiar. When two swords suddenly flash past her shoulders and pierce the drag car. Lan and Jam, Vandine's old warder, manage to kill the drag car and save her. Adilius and Vandine come running out for healing and wonder how the shadow spawn could have gotten so close without any of them noticing. Moiraine tells her that the Drakkar was warded, and they realize that the Black Aja is afoot. Not wanting to put them in more danger, Moiraine says that she and Lan need to leave, but she asks them to send letters to the White Tower for her, hoping that she's not too late.
We get so few POVs from Moiraine, and of those, we don't get much interaction with Lan. Mm-hmm. Like, this chapter gives us a really unique view of their relationship that we don't get anywhere else except New Spring. It has this undercurrent of two people who have known each other for a very long time and carry a deep respect for each other. Yes, Moiraine is in a place of power over Lan, but they have so much more. It's so much more complicated than that. Mm-hmm. Every time I read this, I'm reminded why Nynaeve is so jealous of Moiraine. It's hard to compete with that kind of a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this chapter just makes me want to read New Spring again.
Yeah.
I love reading about Moiraine as a young woman and seeing the difference between who she was and who she becomes. Moiraine and Lan had such a rocky start, and they've been on quite a journey together. But I think what this chapter really highlights is how cruel Moiraine can be.
Yeah.
Like, all of the pranks... Pranks, yeah.
She
pulled on him when they first met were because she was still young and immature and stubborn as a stone. Like, she could give the Two Rivers people a run for their money.
Yes, she could.
But, I mean, she treated Lan horribly. And here, she does have a reason for her actions, and it works out in the end, but she's being really cruel to Lan. And frankly, he deserves better. He has earned better from her by now.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. With everything they've gone through,
this is not okay.
This is not good. Yeah. I don't want to dwell on the passing of Lan's bond because we will have ample time to get into that in later books. But I'm going to just say that this was a really crappy thing to do to him.
Yeah.
And in classic Blue Aja fashion, the ends really does justify the means, because Lan is a huge reason the Forces of Light survived the last battle. He needed to survive. He needed to be there. Mm-hmm. But it still chafes at my sensibilities.
Yeah, I mean, this is a full-on violation.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no other way to see it. It's scandalous behavior. And later, when they're found by the Amyrlin, they get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
You know, like, Tower law regarding warders hasn't been updated in a few centuries, but custom has changed. And this kind of behavior is no longer acceptable in the Tower. I mean, I'm glad that Lan didn't go crazy when Moiraine went through the red door, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it made way for Nynaeve to eventually get his bond. But this was so messed up. Like, there had to be another way. And it really puts a bad taste in my mouth. Like, this is not okay. It's just not.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons that I never really trusted Moiraine in the beginning of the series.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like it. I mean, the end worked out. But
yes, it did.
This was just messed up.
Yeah. PG Machiavelli.
So I'm glad that Moiraine can admit to herself that she's jealous of Nynaeve.
Right?
You know, she's never seen Lan as a romantic partner, so it's not that kind of jealousy. It's more that Moiraine has prior claim on Lan, and that's what's being threatened.
Yeah.
He's been her companion, and they've traveled all over Randland together for the last 20 years, often alone, just them against the world. So she's used to being his priority. And now that she can feel his priority shifting, she can't help but resent Nynaeve a little, which is why it's so easy for Nynaeve to get under Moiraine's skin and shatter that Aes Sedai calm. Like, I don't think that Moiraine begrudges Lan his happiness with Nynaeve.
Oh, no.
But the problem is she still needs Lan. So she can't just wish them well and move on, even if she wanted to.
Yeah.
You know?
It's kind of funny that Vandene is complaining about how now that Lan is there to remind Jaime that he's still a warder, he's out practicing the sword forms again after all these years.
It's cute.
He's a very small character, but he actually comes in handy later in books.
He does. He totally does.
We get a lot of information about the prophecies of the dragon and some setup for the rest of the book here when Moiraine is attacked.
Yeah. So this chapter has a lot of information. Like, I guess you could call it an info dumpy chapter.
Maybe.
But I am never bored and I never find it tedious. Like, I think despite all of the info dump that we get, it's still a really engaging chapter. And I think it's done really well.
Yeah.
At least that's my opinion. Like, I like this chapter. Right. So I've already mentioned that I picture Drakkar as the lamest vampires ever.
Yes, you have.
But I didn't notice until this reading how much they remind me of Dementors.
Yeah, right?
Quote, "Fear the Drakkar's kiss. Once those lips touched her, she would be as good as dead, to be drained of soul, then of life." End quote. So, new conspiracy theory, J.K. Rowling is a Wheel of Time fan.
That would be really kind of cool to find out.
I mean, soul-sucking things are not necessarily new or unique, but
Right.
I don't know. Just something about this reading really struck me of, these are Dementors.
Someone else has used this before. Okay. Yeah. So Lan and Jaime both yell, "Embrace death," as they attack the drag car. It's kind of badass. It bothers me, though, because we don't see this happen again in the series. Like, can you remember seeing other warders shout, "Embrace death"?
No, I don't think so. But I think it might be a Borderland thing. It sounds like something the Shenarians would say.
You know, yeah, I totally buy that.
I mean, we don't know what nationality Jaime is, but
we do know that Borderlanders are like the prime stock that Aes Sedai like to choose from.
yeah, a lot of warders tend to be from the Borderlands, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I feel like it's a Borderland thing more than anything else.
The drag car was warded. That's how
Right.
it got so close. So now we know that the Black Aja are gunning for Moiraine. Mm-hmm. It's a nice way to end this chapter with a sort of sense of urgency, like things are about to pick up.
So we're pretty sure that Liandrin is the one that sent the drag car and warded him, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was her. I don't know how to prove it or confirm it, but I'm pretty sure it was her because this is all pointing to the fact that the Black Aja is the one going after Moiraine.
Right. Like, I don't remember, honestly, if it's ever confirmed, but it certainly makes the most sense.
It sure does.
And Liandrin is sort of the big bad Aes Sedai in this book.
True. So that all kind of connects. I think it's Liandrin.
Yeah, I think so, too.
And that wraps up chapter 22. But before we get to chapter 23, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you by New Spring. Go read it.
Absolutely. Chapter 23 is called The Testing, and the icon is the Flame of Tar-Valon.
Nynaeve is brought to the large chamber for her accepted test. In the center of the room is a thing made of 3 rounded silver arches, each just tall enough to walk under, sitting on a thick silver ring with their ends touching each other. Arches and ring were all of one piece. Since Nynaeve has had no training, Sheriam tries to catch her up. They talk about Tarangriel, the 3 oaths, and the rules of the test. The 3 arches bring the person who goes through them face to face with their greatest fears. She tries to impress on Nynaeve the danger involved with going through the arches. Some women have gone in and never come out, and tells her that once the test has started, she must complete it or be put out of the tower forever. If she refuses, Sheriam can put her name down in the novice book, and Nynaeve will still have 2 more chances when they feel she's ready. Sheriam tells her that there's no shame in refusing, and that she herself wasn't able to go through with it the first time. Nynaeve knows that she needs the freedom of an accepted if she's going to learn enough to carry out her vendetta against Moiraine, so she tells Sheriam that she is ready. They start the ceremony, and Sheriam tells her that the first time is for what was. The way back will come but once. Be steadfast. Nynaeve steps through the first arch and is shocked to find herself naked with no idea where she is or how she got there. She seems to be in a giant maze and tries to find her way out. She sees flickers of movement and gets the sense that someone is following her. She starts to run until a man steps out of an opening in front of her. It's Agenor, who taunts her with all the lewd things he wants to do to her as he chases her through the maze. As she runs from Agenor, her fear turns to anger, and she turns to face him. She yells at him that he has no right and flings her fist toward him, surprising them both as she hurls a fireball at him. Agenor calls lightning down on her, and Nynaeve somehow manages to divert the flow and redirect the lightning to crash down on him. Agenor flees from her, and now, filled with Saidar, Nynaeve pursues him, redirecting his attacks and closing in with fire and lightning. She can feel that the Forsaken is weakening, and she knows if she does not finish him off while she has the opportunity, he will chase her forever. Just then the silver arch appears, and she recognizes it as the way back. She desperately wants to kill Agenor and hesitates, but eventually she forces herself through the archway. Her memory comes back to her, and water is poured over her in a cleansing ceremony. Nynaeve asks Sheriam if it was real, and she replies that no one knows, but the danger is real. Nynaeve tells her that she channeled, and Sheriam says that shouldn't be possible. She warns Nynaeve not to do it again, because others have been burned out that way. Nynaeve goes through the second arch, this time for what is. She finds herself on the green in Emond's Field, again with no memory of the Aes Sedai. Everywhere she looks, she can see signs of neglect, and she marches into the Wine Spring Inn to give the mayor an earful. Inside, she finds Meryn Alvear. Meryn tells her that Bran is dead, Sen Bui is the new mayor, and the new wisdom, Malena, is a terror who has the whole village afraid of her. Meryn tells Nynaeve that Malena beat Alsbeth Lewin, and when Bran and Harold tried to call her out and said she had to go, they both took sick that night and died within a day of each other. Meryn is sure that the new wisdom poisoned them both with grey fennel. She talks about other deaths, about Malena drawing the dragon's vein on doors and declaring people dark friends, about the constant parade of sick children, and how people are too afraid to stand up to Malena because they want to keep the family they have left. Nynaeve says that something must be done and tries to convince Meryn to rally anyone in the women's circle who might be convinced to stand up to the wisdom. They go to find some allies, but before they get too far, they're spotted by Malena, and Meryn freaks out. As Malena comes toward them, Nynaeve sees the silver arch appear. Meryn begs for help, but, sobbing for the pain of her people, Nynaeve tears free of Meryn's grasp and runs through the arch, chased by Meryn's screams. Once back in the chamber, she is ceremonially cleansed again, and she begs Sheriam to tell her that it wasn't real. Sheriam tells her that the second time through is worse than the first, and the third time is even worse than that. There's always some reason not to return, some distraction or temptation to test the woman's resolve. They must want to be Aes Sedai more than anything in the world. The third time is for what will be. Nynaeve is on a hilltop meadow overlooking the fully restored kingdom of Malkier. Lan Madrigoran, king of Malkier, rides up, and she is surprised when he takes her in his arms and kisses her passionately. This time, she has retained some of her memories, and she knows that this isn't right. She pushes him away, remembering Sheriam's words that the third test was the hardest. Her memories are fragmented, but she feels that she cannot face this, and tells Lan that she can't marry him. He laughs and tells her that they are married, and that they have 3 children. She is the queen of Malkier. Reeling from this news, she says that she has to go back, that she can't bear to be tangled up in this. She sees the silver arch and starts toward it, but Lan calls her back, asking her to stay with him. Nynaeve starts to remember her life with him, and his words draw her in. She wants to stay with him. She sees that the silver arch has disappeared. She tells him that this isn't real, and he tells her to look around. Anything she wants to be real can be. She thinks about staying, but then remembers her people and why she is there in the first place. Heedless of Sheriam's warning about channeling, Nynaeve deliberately forms a flower bud in her mind, a white bud on a blackthorn branch, making the thorns sharp and cruel, and embraces Saidar. Filling herself with so much of the power she feels like her bones are burning and her head is roaring with the pain of it, she wills the arch back into existence. Lan begs her not to leave him, but she staggers through the arch and collapses, sobbing on the chamber floor. When Sheriam kneels beside her, Nynaeve tells her fiercely that she hates all Aes Sedai, and Sheriam tells her that no one goes through the arches without saying the same thing. Sheriam sees that Nynaeve has a long black thorn driven through the center of each of her palms. When Sheriam heals her, 2 small scars remain. The final cleansing ceremony is done by the Amerlin seat. Nynaeve is washed clean of her sins and of all ties that bind her to the world. She is now sealed to the tower.
As a person who grew up in a religious family, ceremony was something I had a lot of in my early years. Mm-hmm. It strikes me how Nynaeve being thrust into the accepted test like this means that so much of it is lost on her.
Yeah.
It's like having a person go through a baptism or a confirmation ceremony without any prep or explanation. Like, she understands she has to jump through this hoop if she wants to be accepted, but has no reverence about it or appreciation for what it means to those who have been waiting for this opportunity.
Right.
To me, it's comical how she just comes at this full of her, I have to get back at Moiraine vendetta, when any other person would be driven by a desire to complete this important step on their journey to becoming an Aes Sedai. Mm-hmm. And this does not really ever change through the whole series either. The White Tower will always be a means to an end for her, not her goal.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I like that once Sheriam explains the 3 oaths, the book says, quote, Nynaeve shook her head. It sounded either like too much to swear or too little, and she said so. The oaths are pretty useless and a great way for the forces of light to cripple themselves.
Yeah.
The Aes Sedai find ways to skirt around them so they keep the letter of the law while completely blowing the spirit of the oaths out the window. Mm-hmm. So what's even the point? I like that even knowing nothing about the tower yet, Nynaeve can already tell that the oaths are stupid.
I laugh now when Sherm is telling Nynaeve about the time before they were used because she makes the comment, many of us wish it were so still. Even if her being a black sister is a retcon, I just can't help but think about all the sisters who are black and currently are not, in fact, bound by the 3 oaths. We can get into this more in later books, but yeah, the oaths are pretty useless.
Definitely.
Back to the test. I like the concept that before we can be allowed to progress past the novice stage and enter into a more leadership role, you have to face your fears. It's a common theme in fantasy stories, but there's a reason for that. Fear is what brings the worst in humanity out and can cripple people's ability to act and make decisions. Facing your fears early in your training and learning how to deal with them makes you a much better leader and decision maker.
Yeah, definitely. I also like that Sheriam tells her that no one will ask what she will face in these tests. Every woman's fears are her own property. Yeah. That's actually really important.
I agree.
We have discussed the failed pedagogy of the White Tower, And though I understand why they use this test and agree with their reasoning in theory, this test is messed up.
Yeah.
Like, not only is it unnecessarily cruel, but it's also dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Sharon warns Nynaeve that they've lost women during the test. The numbers in the tower are dwindling. They can't afford to throw women away like this.
Yep.
There has to be a better way to test a woman's strength and resolve without risking her life. I don't know. I mean, this is a hell of a compelling chapter. I love this chapter.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not necessarily complaining, but at the risk of applying logic to a fantasy story, there has to be a better way.
Yeah. I'm not sure why everything has to be done naked. I know this is just my Western mindset and conservative upbringing, but I find it odd that so many important ceremonies in this series require women to either be fully nude or topless. My real question is, why did Jordan make this choice when he wrote the books?
I don't know, but it's true. Like, when it comes to the women, a lot of their rituals and ceremonies, they're naked, whereas I don't think any of the ceremonies involving men require that.
I don't think so either.
At least not off the top of my head. I don't remember that happening. Double standards.
Side note, I wonder how they will handle nudity in the upcoming TV show.
Yeah.
Like, the showrunners may change this to being in underwear or small clothes in order to be more accessible to a younger audience. Mm-hmm. Or they could just go full-on Game of Thrones and just leave it exactly as it is. While I'm very much a fan of the don't change the book approach to adapting books to TV, I think I would be fine with this change if it means that more people would be able to experience the story.
Yeah, I do wonder that, because I was thinking how cool the first test is where Nynaeve starts chasing after Agnor and she's, the lightning's coming down. And I'd love to see that, except she's totally naked.
Yep.
So I was wondering how they're going to make that work.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the test goes, that first time through is the only time where being naked matters.
Right.
Because she's wearing clothes in the other two. So she doesn't have to be naked in the chamber.
Correct.
So the only time it matters that she's naked is in that first test. So yeah, I mean, there is actually a lot of nudity. I wonder how they're going to handle it.
I'm not sure.
Because you're right. It would be nice if it can get a lower rating so more people can watch.
Yeah. But anyway, as Nynaeve goes through each of the stages, she keeps hearing the refrain, "The way back will come but once. Be steadfast." It acts like an anchor, and it grounds both Nynaeve and us, the reader, in the reality that what she's experiencing is not real. It also ratchets up the suspense to constantly be reminded that you only get one chance to leave this reality, so you better not miss it.
Yeah. So in the first test, Nynaeve faces the fear of her recent trauma at the Eye of the World, but this time she finds the power to fight back. She is able to overpower Agnor, and now he's on the run from her. Mm-hmm. And she's filled with righteous anger, but the fear is still there. She's convinced that if she doesn't finish him off while he's weakened, he will come after her again. She almost has him when the arch appears, and it's so hard for her to pull herself away, not just from meting out justice, but from stopping a legitimate threat. Agnor has to be stopped, and she has the opportunity, and it's infuriating for her to be thwarted in that moment.
Yeah. During the cleansing after the first task, the phrase, "You are washed clean of what sin you have done and those done against you," is so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Atonement, the washing away of things done wrong, is not just about a person making up for the wrongs that they have done. Mm-hmm. It's also about letting go of the things that have been done to us. Mm-hmm. Without both, there's no moving forward. So this is one of the beautiful things about this whole test. It acknowledges that becoming something new requires that things you've done, as well as the things done to you, have to be left behind in order to move forward.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that's also true when it comes to healing. you know? Like, a lot of people who have experienced trauma, especially if it's trauma that results from, like, abuse of some sort or violence of some sort, in order to fully heal, they have to find a way of letting go of what has been done to them. And it's a huge part of the healing process. Like, if they're still letting what's been done to them define them, then they never manage to reach true healing.
Right. It's just so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So BT dubs, if you channel while you're in there, you could burn yourself out moment just makes me laugh. Like, this should be a warning giving at the beginning of the test. Like, I get that they believe a woman going through the arch shouldn't remember that she even knows how to channel. But novices channel all the time when they think no one is looking, so they should at least give a warning, just in case.
Yeah.
It does set Nynaeve apart in how strong she is that she channeled, and that was fine, which further acknowledges that she's really special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the second test...
Yeah.
It's so painful. And for me, this is the hardest one.
Right?
As much as I love Lan and Nynaeve together, and I understand her temptation to stay with Lan, Moiraine Alvear pleading for help is what got me in the heart.
Yeah.
We've already talked about how guilty Nynaeve feels about abandoning Emond's Field. You know, she's fiercely loyal, and she takes her responsibility to heart. And she lives every day with the guilt over leaving and the fear of how they're doing without her. Mm-hmm. And this nightmare outcome is just one blow right after another. And Marian's fear is so compelling.
Yeah.
It just hurts. You know, facing the Forsaken is one thing, but this right here, this is how you really torture Nynaeve. Mm-hmm. This entire chapter is excellent writing. But, oh man, this test in particular, it just hurts so much.
Yeah, the thing is, leaving was the right decision to make. Mm-hmm. We know that things turned out fine for Emond's Field.
Yeah.
And that a new wisdom was appointed and took good care of the people.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve needed to become an Aes Sedai and be there for Rand in the last battle.
Yeah, like if Nynaeve hadn't become Aes Sedai... they would have lost.
Yeah.
Like, Rand would have lost.
No question.
For sure.
Fear paralyzes us from being able to move forward because it only allows us to see the worst possible outcomes.
Yeah.
In order to be an Aes Sedai that the Tower wants, they have to be willing to fight through anything and sacrifice anything. Mm-hmm. They have to be able to make the hard choice and not make decisions based on fear or desire.
Yeah.
They have to choose the path that will put the needs of the world over the needs of their own land or people. Mm-hmm. The scene is just so heartbreaking.
It really is. Like, oh man, this one was tough.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the wording of the cleansing ceremony for the second test is, you are washed clean of false pride. You are washed clean of false ambition. You come to us washed clean in heart and soul. I don't really see that as relevant.
Okay.
I mean, like, the first one was really poignant, but I don't really see how this works. Like, I mean, I guess false pride works because, as you said, the Emond's Fielders are fine. Nynaeve was an excellent wisdom, but her replacement was fine. Like, it's not an issue. So I don't know. I just, like I said, I feel like the wording after the first test fit perfectly, but not so much this time.
Well, I've been thinking about it, and I think what you just said kind of highlights what's going on. Like, everything was just fine. Mm-hmm. The sense of pride is that I'm the only one who could possibly do this.
Right.
And I don't think don't think this scene successfully communicates that, because you don't know the first time through that everything's all right.
Right.
But if you go through and reread, you know everything's all right. So yeah, there is a sense of false pride that I am the only one who can take care of my people. Well, no. They actually pointed a really good wisdom who did take care of the people when Nynaeve wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's a false pride.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying, and that's probably what Jordan was trying to do. But I guess I just feel like the reason the second test plays out this way has more to do with Nynaeve's guilt. It's not that she feels that she's not replaceable or that someone else can't take care of Emond's Field and be a good wisdom. It's that she feels like she has personally let them down. She's shirked her responsibility. You know, like she was put in this position of responsibility and this really important position, and she took it very, very seriously. And it's something she trained for. It's something she wanted to do. It's something she was really good at. And she walked away and left them hanging, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like, I don't feel like her guilt comes from feeling that no one can do a better job than her. I feel like her guilt comes from knowing that she put them in a bad position because she left them hanging. Like, she didn't think that she was going to be gone forever when she left. So they were left without a wisdom for a while until they figured that she wasn't coming back.
Right.
You know? And that's really a crappy thing to do. And she knows that. And she has immense guilt coming from it. So I feel like it doesn't quite fit.
I hear what you're saying.
I wonder why Nynaeve was able to keep enough of her memory in the third test to realize what's happening is not real. It's the only one that's like that.
I'm not sure. Like, you're right. It did seem weird. And you get to remember some of it because when you get out, like, people remember their stuff, and it's that, like we were told it's their only.
Oh yeah, like when they go back into the chamber, they remember what happened in their tests. But when she goes in the test, like when she's in the arches, she doesn't remember. Like in the first test, she had no idea where she was or why she was naked or any of that. You know, and it seems like in the second test, when she's on the green, she doesn't remember that she's in a test. She doesn't remember the Aes Sedai. She is going to go give Bran Alvear an earful because she feels like she's still part of the village. Right. So it doesn't seem like she has any of memory of like what's going on. But for the third test, she has enough of her memory to know that this isn't right. You know?
Maybe it's because she's thought about it so much that she recognizes that she's thought about it so much it can't be real. Maybe. That's just me shooting from the hip there.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, she doesn't have her complete memory. Like, I still don't think she knows that she's in a test because it talks about her memory being kind of fuzzy or fractured or whatever. Yeah. But she knows enough to know that this isn't real and that it's that she recognizes it as a temptation. Like, she recognizes that it's designed to get her tangled up in it. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that's really weird. Like, I wonder why.
I'm not sure. The third test is more torture, and Nynaeve has to confront some harsh truths about choosing the life of an Aes Sedai. She's really good at putting her feelings for Lan in a box to be dealt with later. Mm-hmm. And this test is forcing her to confront her feelings head on. Mm-hmm. Like, she gets everything she wants. She married Lan with the kingdom fully restored, children, her perfectly happily ever after. She has to sacrifice her desire for this life if she is going to be an Aes Sedai. Right. Choosing the tower means that other options are no longer available to her. Aes Sedai seldom marry, so as far as she knows, a life with Lan is off the table if she chooses to be an Aes Sedai. When she gets to the false memories of her life as a wife and mother, it drives home what she will be giving up in a real and concrete way. And that I don't think she's ever had to face before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as wisdom, she kind of accepted that she probably would never marry and have that domestic life. And that choice is easy to make when you're not giving anyone specific up. Right. You know, like, she wasn't in love when she made that choice, so no big deal. But now making the choice to be Aes Sedai after she has met and fallen in love with Lan, she's giving up someone specific. Like, it's a very real choice to her now. She can feel that potential of a future. So she can feel the weight of what it means to never have children.
Yeah.
And never have a life of love with a spouse, you know? Like,
right.
It's much, much more real now that she actually has a person, you know?
Right. It's an actual tangible thing.
Yeah. And I don't think, like, in an abstract way, it just doesn't have the same weight, you know? Especially as a very young woman. I mean, Nynaeve was very young. So as she was training to be wisdom and when she became wisdom, you know, like, when you're still young, the idea of having a husband and having children is it's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, obviously her culture is very different from ours, so it's not the same as like someone, you know, today, 2019, America being like, you know, 21, 25, whatever, and thinking about getting married. It's very different. But still, you know, like, she's not had enough time to understand the regret or the sense of loss that eventually comes from not making those choices and, you know, having this other life instead. And this test where she actually gets the memory of her life with Lan, like, it's very, very real of what she's sacrificing.
The weight is actually, she can actually understand the weight of it because she has that. That's so true.
Which, honestly, I mean, out of all of the tests that she's had, this is probably the best test because it's the one that's most applicable.
Right.
You know, like, probably every woman should have to go through something like this so that they understand the reality of the choice that they're making, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the other two feel like torture, but this test actually makes sense.
So as I'm reading through all of these tests, like, a big part of the series is that no one tells Nynaeve what she can or cannot do.
Right?
She will not accept that something can't be done as face value.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, because otherwise we never would have found a way to heal Stilling or the madness or any number of things that she does throughout the series.
Yeah.
If there is a way, Nynaeve is going to find it.
Which is basically how she gets back. The arch disappears while she's distracted by Lan, but she's not going to let go without a fight. So she channels and basically wills it back into existence.
Yep.
She fills herself with so much of the power that she's in physical pain and she almost burns herself out. But she makes it back.
She sure does. All right, what are your opinions of the stigmata imagery? Like, I did not even register them that way until I heard other people refer to them like that. In my mind, it was just a great way to call attention to the fact that Nynaeve is not like other channelers. She does not submit to Sidar the same way, like, hence the black thorn bush instead of a rosebud that she visualizes to open up to the source. But once I heard it, I now can't get stigmata out of my head.
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Like, who did you hear talk about it? Because it definitely, I mean, I was definitely struck by the stigmata imagery. But I haven't heard anyone mention it. And I tried to do some research online, and I couldn't find anything.
Well, I think I heard it from maybe the Watt Spoilers or someone else like that. I know somebody mentioned it.
I don't think it was Watt Spoilers, guys.
I remember at some point hearing someone talk about the stigmata that Nynaeve gets, and I was like, what? Huh? And I had to go back and, like, rethink the whole thing, and I realized, yeah, she did get a stigmata. That's weird.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it's, you know, the Easter season, so...
You know, that could be.
That's why it popped out, but I mean, I absolutely saw it this time around. I don't know. I mean, you've already mentioned that there are other instances of religious imagery in this chapter.
Yeah.
With sins being washed away and stuff. And I mean, the cleansing ceremony is basically a baptism.
Right.
So maybe he was just following a general religious theme? I don't know. I mean, Rand is the Messiah figure in the series, not Nynaeve.
Not Nynaeve, yeah.
So I don't know why Jordan wrote it like this, but the stigmata imagery is too clear to have been an accident.
I agree.
But I have no idea. Like I said, I tried to look it up online, and I didn't see anything. Like, there were a couple comment threads about stigmata, but it referred mostly to Rand because, he gets the brands on his palm and he's got the thing in his side, which makes sense, but no one was talking about it with Nynaeve. So, but I mean, I clearly saw it, so I have no idea.
Interesting.
Okay, guys, email us, let us know. What do you think?
This chapter is the first real time we get to see just how significant Nynaeve's ability to channel is, and how she defies the common assumptions that Aes Sedai make about what is possible with the power. Mm-hmm. She pulls off the impossible by sheer force of will and leaves seasoned Aes Sedai just scratching their heads about what just happened. There's so much more to come for her, but this is really the proper start for her journey of becoming a woman who can channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Amyrlin pours out the last chalice of water, and here is what she says. You are washed clean of Nynaeve Almira from Emond's Field. You are washed clean of all ties that bind you to the world. You come to us washed clean in heart and soul. You are Nynaeve Almira, accepted of the White Tower. Handing the chalice to one of the sisters, the Amyrlin drew Nynaeve to her feet. You are sealed to us now. So, I don't know if there's a way to read that without it sounding ominous.
I don't think so either.
It's like you can hear the vault door slam shut and lock behind Nynaeve. There's no going back. And after this experience, I'm pretty sure we're supposed to feel like we can't trust any Aes Sedai. Yep. Nynaeve is really in for it now.
Yep. Yeah. That ends chapters 22 and 23 of The Great Hunt. Join us next week for chapters 24 and 25, where we spend time in the White Tower with some new friends, and we see Cairhien with old ones.
Yay! We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so that more people can find us. You can tweet us at WhatPodThru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.